Hey everyone, today I'm going to be riffing off of some ideas, so we've got some good second monitor content here for you today. Recently, I spent a couple of months in EU West, and I'm going to preface this by saying that this is my experience as someone who has been in Pro League for 5 years and Challenger for, I think, 7 years now. So this will be less practical advice for you to take away for your games and improvement, but hopefully you will find it an interesting insight to my experiences. So let's talk about those, focusing on mainly solo queue over there. The fast queue times were fantastic. Queue times in high elo in OCE can often take 20 minutes or more, and it makes it really hard to just get as many games as you would like, not to mention them all being high intensity. If you have a game and then you have your mistakes and the things that you did well and you want to carry it over to the next game, then you spend 20 minutes in queue and you're watching YouTube content, and it's really hard to just stay focused and in the zone. It's just, it can be a bit awkward. But aside from the queue times, the main thing that I found was that I found it competitive. I found it invigorating. I found it exciting. These are things that I've been missing from solo queue in Oceania for a while. I had to adapt my champ pool, how I approach level 1 in terms of invading, spreading, even contesting first minion waves, how I interact with my teammates, how I approach the pick and ban phase, everything like that. And then, of course, also experiencing high levels of execution in-game so that your ideas and your skills are really put to the test. Strategically, there's still quite a lot that is left to be desired, but that's going to apply for solo queue in any region. I want to talk about one of the main character development arcs I went through in EU West. I started with leaving all communication channels available. I didn't mute any type of chat or pings. I moved to muting chat and keeping pings because nothing ever comes from chat that is useful. It's either just complaining or flaming or just useless, whatever. But of course, pings can be very useful in terms of knowing what your teammates want, and especially in the higher elos when people are a little bit more precise and communicative with their pings. I didn't want to lose that channel of communication. However, in my experience, almost everyone in EU West was constantly spam pinging mistakes, and it frustrated me. It annoyed me. I would make a mistake, and then I'd just be kind of like waiting in the back of my mind for someone to start spam pinging it, and then I have to find the mental resilience to move past that and then still focus on what I want to do next. And all of that is just time and effort that is not invested into thinking about the game and how you want to win it. So I told myself that it'll always take up some mental space, so why don't I just mute the individual toxic pings, and otherwise I'll approach every game with having all pings available. But since everyone did it so regularly, that would lead to me just having to individually mute pretty much everyone in my team, and then I'm left with, playing in the dark, in the sense that I just didn't have access to those informative pings that you want from your teammates, and I had to do too much guesswork on intentions. Sure, it was a lot easier to stay focused on myself, but I would find myself oftentimes just kind of hovering in fog and then just waiting to see if my jungler would make a proactive decision or back off instead. And then there's just a lot of time that I'm wasting that I don't really know how to best make use of it with my team. It definitely took me quite a long time to move on from that to just full unmuting, because I think I was in a stage of denial where I said that no matter what approach I have, it's always going to take up some form of space in my mind, and it's better to not have any space in my mind taken up from unnecessary toxic pings. But eventually what I did is I decided that I was just going to unmute, and I tanked the bad pings to be able to see the useful pings at the end of the day and just try to minimize the duration that the annoying toxic pings were in my mind, because they're going to be in your mind regardless, right? You're going to see them, you're going to process them. It's just about how long they last and how you react to them. Because it's one thing for your teammates to ping you when they are just frustrated for no reason and you haven't really made any significant error. And then it's another to be pinged when you know that you messed up and you cost your team a crucial laning phase or team fight or even the game. And those ones are going to hurt more, and it's going to be harder to move forwards through them. And that's exactly what I was experiencing. So for my character development through this, I was able to laugh at or even pity their pathetic mentals and recenter myself a few seconds later. I would make a mistake. Yep, okay, I got pinged. Are you happy now? Have you got that out of your system? All right, let's keep going with what we want to do. And then the final stage of development was I was even able to, laugh at myself. I would mess up. I would even be comfortable in dropping a few missing pings on myself, laugh it off, move on, and then have that not affect my future decisions, still play with freedom and confidence and aggression. Because in EU West, I think it's just a cultural thing, but everyone is a lot more direct, right? In North America or in Oceania, these are going to be more kind of passive-aggressive servers where you're not really going to get the direct, constant pinging on your head as often, or at least my experience of that in higher elo. I want to talk about my ranked journey in EU West now. So I just wasn't good enough to smurf all the way to Challenger immediately. And honestly, I welcomed that. The purpose, the meaning that I find through League of Legends, why I play the game, is it comes from pushing yourself to new horizons. And that's something that I felt incredibly challenging to experience on the Oceanic server, where almost by default, I'm the top of Challenger. And I'm at or near rank 1 support in the server with minimal adaptations and minimal challenges. And you don't want to be in an environment like that in any area in your life, right? Because there isn't going to be the environment or the people around you to push you so that you can feel alive and that you can reach new horizons and have that sense of purpose. So I welcomed the challenge. I brought my skill set to a much more challenging environment. I put them to the test. They weren't good enough. I still had that confidence that with enough reflection and enough deliberate practice, I will rise to the occasion. How I approached my champ pool in EU West. I started off with playing a lot of Senna and Camille. I just wanted to hard carry 1v9, do a lot of damage, be able to just carry through. Basically just smurfing. I found that was the fastest way to get through to the higher ranks. Senna Camille from, I think the account started in Gold MMR all the way to High Diamond. And then in High Diamond, I felt a little bit more competition. I wasn't able to consistently 1v9 with Camille. She's a bit of a riskier pick. With Senna, she is a bit vulnerable as well, and people are starting to be able to punish her better. So then I pivoted to Janna instead. And I was able to smurf with Janna through to High Master quite quickly with a really high win rate. So I had a lot of confidence. I was thinking, oh, okay, I smurfed really quickly to High Diamond. I smurfed really quickly to High Master. So surely that means that I am going to just kind of naturally end up in low Challenger with minimal obstacles. Boy, was I wrong. I found myself suddenly hard stuck at 600 LP Master. Now, for context, Grandmaster at that stage was starting at around 650 LP. So I had High Master rank and my MMR was easily Grandmaster. I would bounce between 500 and 600 and sometimes step over into the Grandmaster 650 LP range. But I had never really experienced this before. I was just stuck in this 100 LP bracket. Now, the problems that I was facing, I was finding myself in Grandmaster and Challenger lobbies, where the pace of game was just not appropriate for a Janna, let alone a Senna, which is what I was spending most of my time playing. I needed to be able to set up my teammates better, to link up with my more proactive junglers better, to survive the first 5 minutes of high threat lanes better, things like that. If I came up against a Nautilus or a Blitzcrank, I wasn't able to just out-skill, outperform, and be able to get past that and start carrying in the mid to late game. Janna felt too slow. I tried some Bard, as he is the champion I've mained for the longest time in my life for League of Legends, but he was also too weak early. He wasn't able to have enough proactivity with junglers making decisions because he wasn't able to generate 2v2 pressure. I tried Zillion as a counter pick. It was good on paper. I was performing and I understood him very well, but people just weren't willing to concede anything early. Even if Zillion was a good pick in the game because I was able to minimize bot and I would outscale and hard counter the enemy comp, my ADCs just wanted to fight, and it is what it is. I had to adapt. So my mind went to Nautilus because he's relatively easy to execute. He's exceptionally strong early on. Unfortunately, I just performed horribly on the champion, and I decided it just wasn't worth investing the time into Nautilus and to have like a below average success rate on him. I really wanted to climb as fast as possible because my time was limited over there and he was affecting my confidence quite a bit. So eventually I found my way back to one-tricking Rakan and allowing my teammates counter picks. I would try to first pick every lobby. I would ban Janna myself, and then I would allow my teammates more resources to find good matchups for themselves and trust that I was able to just perform in any matchup around bot. Now the thing about Rakan that potentially Janna and Senna lacks is to just really minimize engager and high threat lanes extremely well. I would also say that he is one of the best champions for me. I am very confident on how to play him from start to end. Now, unfortunately, Rakan is also weak early, and I wasn't able to just dominate 2v2 and then link up with my jungler, for instance, but I was able to just match and still have some threat, right? Still have some meaningful setup while not, dying 2v2 or getting dove. And one tricking Rakan, it did allow me to get Grandmaster. So that was a good feeling. It was the best short-term band-aid that I could find if I had more time to prepare a champ pool. Maybe on a Smurf account, or maybe I would be over there for a longer period of time. I would try to add Nautilus or Pike for early pressure, and then main Rakan and one of those while having a niche counter pick Braum or Zillion when it looks really good for them in a comp. Moving on to a little bit more in-game points. So my level 1s just weren't precise enough. I was too aggressive and I got punished in those Grandmaster and Challenger lobbies. Something that just never happened in OCE. Because I was just able to dictate the pace of the lane and the game from minute 1 over there. So I adapted. I developed serious discipline and precision. The game that we are looking at in the background here, this is going to be a pretty good example if you have been paying any attention. Not only have people gotten so good at the game in the last few years, but especially in the highest ELO rank of major regions like EU West is. So I had to give the necessary respect to everyone around me and express my knowledge of the matchup with greater discipline and precision than them. Let's say I'm Alistair versus Leona. In OCE, I would be posturing forwards and Leonas would be too scared to pull the trigger, or they would pull the trigger at horrible times and it would not be a challenge to just kind of mechanically outplay that. In EU West, I would need to clearly kite backwards and prevent Leona from ever finding a second Q in a fight, because that is what the matchup demands on paper, right? Leona versus melee supports, Leona needs to find that second Q in order to really express her advantage and her strength. And this was the only way for me to chase consistent carry performances and reach Challenger. Like I said, I have faith in my abilities to adapt and to solve problems, and I just wasn't good enough to smurf through whatever other channels I could to get to the highest rank. And so I just really wanted to have that feeling that, okay, I am a consistent, positive contributor towards victory, and I am a relevant factor against, defeat for our team as well. What I could have done, I could have just picked whatever champion I felt like. I could have gone with the flow, followed my teammates' calls, and just be stuck 50% win rate. But I want more, and I will have a visceral reaction to feeling like that in a game. And when I have that feeling of being a consistent positive contributor, I know it's a matter of time before I reach the highest ranks. So that just wasn't the case in a lot of my 500 to 600 LP Master games in EU West. I could immediately tell I was just another 50% contributing player in too many of my games. So for the clickbait comparison and conclusion that we're all here for, mid to high Master in EU West equals high Challenger OCE. Personally, I would need a full split, I think, of testing and optimizing and feeling everything out and using that basis as a launch pad to slowly climb to Challenger in the next split. It's absolutely a possibility that I would fall short still and I would just be hard stuck High Master, Low Grandmaster again. But I did find confidence through my reflections and adaptations, so maybe next time. Now I want to go on some tangents about my career and history with League of Legends for the Coach Cupcake superfans out there. I've had an up and down relationship with solo queue in my career. I started off as a typical solo queue talent. I played confidently and aggressively, cockily, probably stupidly, and I was just incredibly rough around the edges with no finesse and thought out strategy, basically. So we're going back to 2016 right now. This is right before I first got picked up on a pro team and I was just climbing the ranks in solo queue. So yeah, the best way that I found to climb was to play ranged champions, especially in Season 6 when ranged champions were being quite strong. They were prevalent in the meta. There were Karmas and Zyras and even Brands, and you can play quite a lot and and dominate the 2v2 laning phase. And also in the region of Oceania where the level of competition is not that strong and you want to try and have as big of a carry performance individually as you can. So with all that said, when I got on a pro team and I needed to expand my champion pool, it was tricky for a while. I was basically griefing scrims with so many deaths in the mid to late game. What would happen is I would stomp laning phase with my playstyle and then have no clue what my limits were in the mid to late game, and I got punished really hard. But I kept up that energy and I was able to learn very quickly, and I became quite a scary player, at least in OCE. So from there, I kept up my solo queue and my pro league, and I reached rank 3 or 4-ish in OCE, I can't remember which one, and I had quite a lot of success in pro as well. I think we made it to grand finals of my first split and we were able to go to the Rift Rivals in Vietnam, so that was a great experience. But for the following year, that was my first experience of overseas solo queue. We bootcamped in Korea at the end of 2017 and I had an absolute blast, and I found so much challenge and enjoyment there, much like what I was talking about at the start of this video. I was actually able to play champions like Braum and Tam and adopt a facilitative role while still finding success in solo queue. Something that is basically impossible in OCE, where the level at the top end is worse and there just aren't enough players to fill lobbies up with challengers. So what happens is basically a glorified version of which challenger can carry their team harder than the opposing challenger, because the lobby is going to look like one challenger 4 masters versus another challenger 4 masters. Now, is it reasonable that a Braum or a Tarn or a Janna or a Lulu is going to out-carry the enemy challenger top lane who is playing Jax with 10 kills? Probably not. So I felt compelled to play Bard and Karma and Thresh and Zyra, champs like that in OCE. This was the first time in a while where I felt challenged and I really needed to rise to the occasion. So I spammed games in Korea. I loved every minute. My favorite moments were playing on Peanut's team while he streamed, and I flash consumed him after helping him dive the enemy team under their mid-inhib tower, and he complimented me, and I thought that was really cool. This is my first experience with playing with some of the international big names and seeing their IGNs, and I was just kind of overwhelmed. I also developed my special counterpick to Blitzcrank in Korea because that region is notorious for picking Blitzcrank quite frequently. And so I picked Trundle into Blitzcrank. And what I would do is I would buffer my pillar to interrupt his hook on my ADC or even on myself, which is quite difficult, right? He hooks you, you have to press your E at the exact right time so that even when you get hooked, you're immediately popped out by your pillar's hitbox. And then you just kind of beat his head in when fights would happen. Of course, this was at a time when Trundle support was much more viable than it is now. There was also one morning when I was playing at the same time as Deft, and I got him 3 times consecutively in the games, and I was just thoroughly enjoying the challenge and the speed and the mechanical prowess that I was able to be a part of. So at my peak in Korea, I was about 100 LP off of Challenger. And this was right before the start of the 2018 season, so there was no Grandmaster yet between Master and Challenger. I didn't quite make it, but I had no regrets. I gave it my best shot, and all good things have to come to an end, unfortunately. So I had to go back to Oceania, and I couldn't force myself to play solo queue anymore. It really felt like a chore there. It was such a downgrade in every aspect. Competitiveness, queue times, mechanical prowess, even the anonymity that a different server provides was a nice change. So I put all of my eggs in the scrims and the stage games basket in 2018. I just wasn't mature enough to get value out of solo queue despite its challenges. And that wasn't to say I didn't still find success. We went undefeated in best ofs the whole year competitively. Regular season was best of 3s, and we made it to MSI and World representing Oceania. So I had a readily accessible part of League that I could draw confidence and perform well in, and it didn't have to be solo queue at that time. But the very limited amount of solo queue that I did play, I basically treated it as a practice tool. I added Pyke to my champion pool by spamming it in solo queue, and otherwise I would just play with ridiculously unrealistic expectations. It was quite embarrassing. I would observe dive opportunities or 2v2 kill ranges, and then I would just blindly expect my teammates to see them as well, or to be ready to follow up immediately as if they could read my mind. From an outside perspective, what that would look like is there's the support that's just, he's got a death wish who keeps running into the enemies and dying, and he's low master, and I don't know what he is doing here. Is he really a pro player? It was quite silly, but I would tell myself that my teammates are trash, there's no point in playing. I just wasn't learning anything from the solo queue games. I just didn't enjoy it at all, and so I didn't really play it. And that was clearly reflected in my solo queue results. I then had the opportunity to bootcamp in EU West and then Korea multiple more times. But unfortunately, with me, I brought my stubborn and my short-sighted and my immature approach to solo queue. It definitely served as a defense mechanism too. If I don't put myself out there and really try to hit the highest ranks, even in other regions, then I can't meaningfully fail either. And I just wanted to protect my confidence. What if I failed? What would that mean for me as a player? And maybe even as a person. So I ended up just kind of hovering around Master in both of those servers and didn't apply myself fully to hit the highest rank possible. If someone would say, oh, you're a pro player, how come you're only getting Master? Why is that? I had all of my excuses ready. Sure, there was some power to my excuses, right? Of course, solo queue and professional play is different, but by no means was solo queue a pointless endeavor in improving my craft, and I should have been able to get whatever I could out of those experiences. And that approach basically defined my relationship with solo queue until my final retirement from competitive esports at the end of 2021. Which is a shame because especially overseas, I really could have honed my craft. I want to quickly apologize for not having more screenshots or recordings of everything I'm talking about. I've always been horrible at screenshotting and all of that because I'm not really too fussed about it personally. It's more about the experiences itself and I also had no intention of becoming a coach and a content creator. But since 2021, I've been a consistent rank 1 support, top 5 solo queue player. I do at least have these screenshots over here, and I will look to add 2024 to that list at some stage as well. But the whole point of this tangent is I've never been better at the game of League since I was able to put my ego aside and take solo queue seriously. I took as much responsibility on my shoulders as possible, which is a concept that I preach constantly in my coaching and on this channel too. I valued adaptation over just pure theory crafting and game knowledge. So I firmly believe that taking solo queue seriously and starting my coaching career, needing to clearly articulate concepts rather than just trust me bro, it works, did more for my level of play than years of pro play ever could and ever did. So for me, the mountains that remain unclimbed are Challenger in another region and rank 1 in Oceania. But I have room to grow. I love being challenged, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. Whether you've been involved at the highest level of the game for over 5 years or you're just starting it out this year, we're all on our own journeys, but it's that journey, it's that movement forward, it's that taking whatever you can out of scenarios and taking responsibility as much as possible that is going to benefit all of us. Thank you for watching. Please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting, as this really does help my channel grow. To level up your gameplay and mentality, visit my website schoolofsupport.gg. The link is going to be down in the description below.